Sven Forkbeard, a legendary Viking warrior who set out on a daring journey to prove his worth and claim the throne of Denmark and England. Facing countless trials and tribulations, he battles against enemies and nature itself, ultimately emerging as a charismatic leader and a true hero in the eyes of his people. Sven Forkbeard was born around 960 AD and was the son of Harald Bluetooth, King of Denmark. Being born into Viking royalty was not quite the same as being born into European royalty centuries later. The title of magnate or chieftain was bestowed upon the most prosperous individual within a given society, selected by its population of freemen. This was mainly due to the fact that great wealth and resources allowed them to amass a small army to reinforce their authority. As such, they wielded considerable influence on many levels, including their involvement in the large-scale cultic festivals of the period. It was within this context that Sven was expected to prove himself and be proficient in combat, sailing, boat-making, tracking, and hunting, as well as leading military expeditions with help from magnates. King Harald Bluetooth's conversion to Christianity in the mid-980s was to have far-reaching consequences for both Harald and his son, Sven Forkbeard. Disrupting the delicate balance of power between pagan and Christian, Harald's religious conversion resulted in a loss of legitimacy among his former pagan supporters. His son Sven and strained his relationship with both political and religious institutions, leaving him vulnerable to opposition and ultimately leading to his overthrow. Sven wasted no time taking advantage of this political unrest and seizing power for himself, setting in motion a series of events that would culminate in the Battle of Svolder in 995. The sagas attribute the battle to Olaf Tryggvason's ill-fated proposal of marriage to Sigurd the Haughty and his problematic marriage to Thyri, sister of Sven Forkbeard. Following Olaf's untimely death during the battle, Sven was able to consolidate power and claim the Norwegian crown, unifying much of the region under his rule. Tensions then rose across the North Sea as revenge, religion, and English raids became prominent issues. The conversion of Harald Bluetooth led to a powerful backlash, culminating in one of the bloodiest battles fought in the region and setting the course of the future. After overthrowing his father, Sven faced armed resistance in Denmark and Norway, weakening his forces to deploy against Saxon England. His ferocity, ruthlessness, wit, and battle tactics kept those under his rule in check, yet unpredictable weather could put them at a disadvantage. Facing fierce resistance from Ethelred the Unready, Sven had to transport and supply his forces over the North Sea in order to launch the invasions. No leader does everything without having mentors or allies along the way, and Sven's journey was no different. Early in life, Palnatoke helped Sven Forkbeard by raising him and convincing him to wage war on his father, King Harald Bluetooth. Palnatoke was a staunch supporter of the old pagan faith and was an ally of Sven in his campaign against Harald. With Palnatoke's aid, Sven led a successful revolt. Palnatoke was also the founder of the Jomsvikings Brother, a powerful Viking military organization. At various times, he had a number of other allies, including Swedish King Olof Skotkonung, Eirik Håkonarson, Jarl of Lade, and Palnatoke. Sven formed an alliance with these allies to attack Norwegian King Olaf Tryggvason and the Battle of Svolder in 1000. After the battle, Sven became the virtual ruler of Norway, although nominally sharing power with his allies. By the early 11th century, English forces had descended upon Denmark, in part an effort to spread Christianity throughout the region. News of the St. Brice's Day massacre, the planned mass slaying of Danes by King Æthelred the Unready, reached Scandinavia and further escalated tension. Unable, or rather not willing, to let this continue, Sven started to take hold of the reins of history. Sven undertook expeditions to Wessex and East Anglia in 1003-4, but famine forced his return home in 1005. He again set out to England in 1006-7, possibly joined by Thorkel the Tall's Viking army, who later pledged to English rule. While Sven himself invaded England in 1013, accompanied by his son Knut the Great, Sven invaded England in August 1013, quickly conquering East Anglia and the Humber before reaching Gainsborough. Uchted and the people of Northumbria immediately submitted to Sven's dominion, followed by Lindsey and the 5 boroughs, each of whom provided hostages. Marching south over Watling Street to Oxford and Winchester, their people yielded and provided hostages as well. Sven then proceeded east to London, while Æthelred and Thorkel the Tall, who had defected to Æthelred, led the Londoners in a fierce resistance. Ultimately, Sven's march to Bath where the Western Thanes had submitted and provided hostages, caused the Londoners to relent, prompting King Ethelred to send his sons Edward and Alfred to Normandy before fleeing to the Isle of Wight for Christmas. Sweyn, based in Gainsborough, Lincolnshire, organized his new kingdom after being named King of England on Christmas Day 1013, although he was never officially crowned. His reign lasted for only 5 weeks before his death on February 3, 1014. Sweyn's son was driven out shortly afterwards, but returned a few years later. Sweyn's legacy lived on long past his death. His brutal tactics caused fear among the English population and weakened the English monarchy, leading to the rise of the Norman conquest in 1066. Sweyn imposed heavy taxes, which had a lasting impact on the country's finances, which his son Knut the Great continued after he returned to England and regained the throne. Sweyn's elder son, Harold II, succeeded him as King of Denmark. Estrid Svensdatter, daughter of Sweyn, was the mother of Sweyn II of Denmark, and her bloodline has since ruled over Denmark. Margaret of Denmark, one of her descendants, married James III of Scotland in 1469, bringing Sweyn's bloodline to the Scottish royal house. Eventually, when James VI of Scotland became King of England in 1603, Sweyn's royal line reigned in both Denmark and England. Sven Forkbeard's journey was an inspiring and courageous story that serves as a reminder of the determination and resilience that leads someone to success. His story of pioneering a voyage to a far-off land and bringing newfound knowledge and cultures to his people resonates with modern audiences. He reminds us that success comes to those who strive for it, and that true strength lies in the courage of your convictions. Sven's journey shows us that we can make a change for the better, regardless of the risks or the challenges that face us. Though his journey was difficult and at times overwhelming, it was filled with discovery and knowledge that was invaluable. Through the remarkable bravery of Sven Forkbeard, his legacy will live on in the hearts and minds of his descendants and in modern-day culture.